Welcome back to the channel. I'm Mike. Welcome to season 2 of Nightspeed, everybody. I want to thank everybody who is a subscriber. This first year of doing this channel has been a wonder for me. I never thought I would start a channel, let alone have almost 100 subscribers by now. And I want to thank all of my 98 subscribers out there for your support. You guys have been wonderful, and I just want to say thank you. And I really apologize I haven't been able to put out a video lately. I've been really busy professionally, and that hasn't given me a lot of time to put out a new video. So here we are, it's late February, and I'm finally getting around to getting one out here. And season 2, we're going to enter the intermediate skill level. And the intermediate skill level pretty much involves you got to take a step up. So we've moved from smartphones and point and shoots, and now we're going to actually get into some more serious equipment. And the next kind of step is going from, your smartphone and your point and shoot to more like this, a DSLR system. Now, some people have DSLRs, some people have mirrorless, some people have both. I have both. But most people that are just beginning or taking that next step, they basically can probably afford a DSLR. And this one right here, I highly recommend. Not only because it's very efficient, but to do anything to it, it's rather cheap. And the camera itself is pretty cheap, especially if you're hunting on eBay. So this is a Canon XSI 450D, a 12.1 megapixel Canon DSLR camera that was built in 2010. So this thing has got about 13 years on it, but it has been a tried and true camera for me. Both in my daylight photography when I was shooting daylight with this, and now in astrophotography. This camera is Astro modified, meaning I've had the IR cut filter removed. It's a naked sensor Astro modification. And this also uses an upgraded lens compared to the kit lens. So a lot of you guys who get DSLRs usually get this in it, an 18-55. Pretty common, pretty standard lens. They're pretty good if you're a beginner and you're just learning astrophotography. They're pretty good to have. They're cheap, so they have a lot of chromatic aberration in them, but if you're just getting your skill set down, they're great. The difference is this one has what would have been considered the upgrade, and this is a 17-85 millimeter lens, f4 to f5.6, and it's really a nice lens. Because this is slightly upgraded, the optics are a little better. It's a little bit more heavier duty lens, got a little better glass in it. So chromatic aberration is, while it's still somewhat present, it's a lot less pronounced than using the 17-85 kit lens. Now, I usually use this to shoot untracked astrophotography, but it also shoots my time lapses. And this has been just a tried and true system. But recently I went through and I did some upgrades to it. One was putting on this mount so you can see I have my smartphone rig attached to it. This is allowing me to shoot 2 different types of astrophotography at the same time. Second, you may notice it has an L bracket on it. This serves 3 functions. 1, I can shoot in landscape mode. 2, I can shoot in portrait mode. Or 3, I can put this on my tracker and I can actually use it for tracked astrophotography. So it can serve 3 different purposes at once. I also have my nice little intervalometer here for doing my sequences. Now, if you shoot untracked astrophotography, we live by something called the 500 rule. And the 500 rule simply states that you take the number 500 divided by the focal length that you're shooting at. This will give you the time, when you do that equation, the time you can shoot without getting star trails in your image. Now, if you're using a DSLR, such as this one, if it isn't a full frame, if you're shooting with a crop sensor, then using the 500 rule is kind of, you got to take something into account, and that is the crop factor of the camera. Canons are usually 1.6 times in their crop factor, which means if I'm shooting at 17 millimeters, I'm actually shooting at 28 millimeters. So I have to take the number 500 and divide it by 28 versus 17 that I'm telling the lens to shoot at. But if you can figure out your crop factor of your camera, the 500 rule is easy to figure out. Now, that's pretty much it to this thing. Not a whole lot to it. What I would want to talk about then is settings. Depending on what your 500 rule tells you and what focal length you're shooting at, that's pretty much tells you the exposure time. But then there's things like ISO and f-stop. Now, I always say if you're using a kit lens or if you're using this little upgraded 1785, you might want to take your f-stop up 1, which means like if it shoots at f3.5, take it to f4. Don't shoot all the way wide open. That'll just help you sharpen your stars up a little bit and you won't have as much chromatic aberration. The other thing is ISO. Depending on your light pollution in the area, if you live in a city, it's Bortle 9 and it's a white zone. So your ISO will probably be, pretty low, whereas the dark area, you can pump that ISO up. I live in Bortle 6, so I usually shoot anywhere between 400 and 1600, depending on how the night goes. And the darker, the higher I go with my ISO. If it's brighter, if I'm closer to the city, then that ISO is going to be down a little bit. But you have to figure out your own settings, and everybody's settings are going to be different because their environment is different. So, but yeah, this is my Untracked monster. And how do I shoot? Well, the way I shoot astrophotography untracked is usually it's during the work week. So I only get, if it's a clear night, I might take an hour at most. But most of my sessions are 30 minutes to an hour. And I'll pick a target in the sky. I've been shooting Orion lately, for instance. And over the period of 3-4 nights, I will shoot a bunch of subs, and then when I get done with that, I shoot, I process the image, and that's how I get a really nice image out of it. But shooting untracked provides one drawback, and that means that you're a lot more involved with shooting. You have to constantly keep your target framed correctly so you get the same image every time. And I'll show you my rig, how it's set up, how I facilitate that, but that really is what is huge about untracked astrophotography. If you really want to have a really nice project, you're gonna have to be very involved in how you're shooting your target and making sure your framing is perfect. And I have kind of got this down to a science. I know that this thing, if I'm depending on what focal length I'm shooting at, I'm usually going to be able to shoot 10 subs, and then I have to stop, reframe, and then shoot another 10. Stop, reframe, shoot another 10. That's how I do it with this. And if I do a project, I'm usually going to go 2, 3, maybe 4 nights before I assemble an image. And this one being Astro modified, I get a lot of signal out of it because with that IR cut filter out of the way, the hydrogen emits it can actually pass into the sensor now. And so I can get a lot of nebulosity out of it. But let me show you what my rig looks like fully set up, and I'll explain a little more to you. So this is my rig for Untracked Astrophotography fully set up here. And like I said, there's really not much to it, but what I've done here to really make it the untracked monster that it is I've really kind of gone into the engineering point of it, making it exactly how I want. Framing is always difficult when you're doing untracked astrophotography because you have to have a constant sense of your angles and how you want things to look. And so what you end up doing is you're looking through the viewfinder a lot at your target and just making sure everything lines up. What's really, really important here though is I have this set up so you can basically maneuver this thing on the tripod any way you want. So at the bottom here, is kind of a pneumatic head. And this was actually set up for, this is a Canver H4 video tripod head that I found. And because of its controls being so good, I can actually soft touch it, which means I can set it back, I can set it forward, however I want. And then, of course, also because it has the spin head on it, I can turn it nice and smooth any which way I want to go. But that's not all. Once I get lined up on the target, I want to be able to keep my framing, and to keep her nice and stable, there's also a ball mount here. And this allows me to kind of manipulate the camera in small adjustments, however which way I want to go. So if I turn the head here and just loosen it, I can tip it, I can do whatever I kind of want with it. And that really helps me facilitate my framing, especially for what I'm doing. Having the L bracket here helps me flip it so I can put it actually in portrait mode also. And then, of course, there's my settings, and I figure I'd share this with you. My settings are actually what you'll see here. I'm shooting 13 seconds at f4, and then I'm usually shooting out here at ISO 1600. And always have your camera set to RAW. Always have your camera in manual mode. And, just be kind of aware of what your settings are. Like I was talking about, the 500 rule is paramount. But this is my untracked monster. And I really, really, really enjoy shooting with this rig. Yeah, it's not a tracked rig. I have to do all the maneuvering with it, but if I'm only going out for an hour each night, it's really not that much work. And I'll show you guys some of the images that I've shot with this. I also use this to shoot my time lapses. So when you see my gear in motion, this is primarily what's been shooting all the time lapses as well. And I just basically shorten up the tripod and put it under the rig, or however I want to image with the rig in the field of view, and just let her go. Let her shoot subs like she was shooting Astro anyway, and you guys kind of see the result. So, but this is the untracked monster, and I really enjoy it. You might notice this strap here. It is not a dew heater. It is just a strap that I use to insulate the lens. I live in Arizona, so using a dew heater, I don't normally need to use my dew heater, but this kind of negates that, especially if I'm only shooting for an hour. But I do have a dew heater, and I do put it on if I ever do need it. But I've noticed just by running this little strap around it and everything, I can usually keep the lens pretty okay, and it's not much of a deal. There's also an intervalometer attached for my sequences. Like I said, I usually shoot 10 subs and then reset. So in my little pouch down here attached to it, my intervalometer kind of sits. I also got a spare battery in here in case I need it. So that's always there. And but that's all there really is to it. Not much to her at all. Like I said, I really enjoy this rig. And I've been working on a project in Orion lately, and just shooting wide fields of Orion, and I've gotten some pretty impressive images out of it. But I will show you guys the latest that I did, and I think you'll be quite surprised what you can do with an untracked astrophotography DSLR like this, Astro modified, if you're dedicated enough and if you put in the work. So, like I said, I've been moving with this new theory of doing multiple nights with my Untracked and gathering not just, 130-minute or an hour session, but I'm actually doing like an hour each night. And what I'm going to show you guys here is the latest little fun that I did. I went 5 nights and I shot Orion over and over and over again with my extra modified XSI and posted calibration frames and everything. And I'm going to show you what I came up with. When you guys see this, it was neat. It was really, really good. So just take this as a note. This is what you can do with an untracked astrophotography rig if you really are dedicated. So anyway, I want to thank my subscribers again, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And like I said, you know, if you like, subscribe. Also, you know, you don't have to just subscribe to me. Subscribe to everybody. You know, I'm a big advocate for the community, and I want to see everybody enjoy this channel, and I want to see everybody else's channels grow as well. So anyway, I hope you guys all have clear skies, and I'll see you on the next episode of Night Speed, which is going to be a doozy. So it'll be a little bit of a surprise. So I'm kind of looking forward to it, and it'll be epic. Put it that way. Have a good one, guys. See you on the next episode of Night Speed.